Somewhere right now, a man is lying next to someone he used to crave, staring at the ceiling, wondering what happened. The relationship is fine. No one cheated. No one screamed. The bills get paid, the dishes get done, the texts still say love you at the end. But something is gone. The hunger is gone, and he doesn't know if it's her or him or just time. Here's what nobody tells him. He's asking the wrong question. He's asking, why don't I want her anymore? When the real question, the one that's been sitting in plain sight for over 2,000 years, is, what did I think wanting was supposed to do for me in the first place? That question has an answer. It comes from a group of philosophers who never had Tinder, never had porn on a phone, never had a single dating app, and yet diagnosed the exact disease-eating modern bedrooms with terrifying precision. The Stoics. And before you tune out because you think Stoicism means feel nothing, want nothing, become a sad robot, that's not it. That's the cartoon version sold to you in 5-minute YouTube clips. The actual philosophy is more interesting, more useful, and frankly more erotic than anything in the cartoon. Stick with me. By the end of this, you're going to understand desire, sexual desire specifically, in a way that almost nobody walking around today understands it. And it might just save the thing you thought was already dead. Part 1. The myth we're all living inside. Let's start with the myth. Because you can't see past a myth until you name it. The myth goes like this. Desire is a finite resource that two people either have or don't have. It's like a tank of gas. At the start of a relationship, the tank is full. That's why everything feels electric, urgent, can't keep your hands off each other. Over time, the tank empties. Familiarity drains it. Routine drains it. Kids, stress, work, the sheer repetition of seeing the same face on the same pillow, all of it drains it. And once the tank is empty, that's it. You're bedroom dead. You either accept a sexless companionship or you go find a new tank somewhere else. This story is everywhere. It's in sitcoms, in advice columns, in the hushed conversations between friends. The spark just isn't there anymore. As if the spark were a thing that existed independently of you, that arrived on its own schedule and left on its own schedule, and your only job was to watch it flicker and die. Here's the problem. This story is almost completely wrong, and the Stoics figured out why, using a framework that has nothing to do with sex on the surface, but everything to do with it underneath. Part 2. The Stoic diagnosis. It's not about the object. The Stoics built their entire psychology around one radical claim. Your emotional reactions are not caused by things outside you. They're caused by your judgments about those things. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most influential philosophers in Roman history, put it bluntly, people are not disturbed by events but by their opinions about events. A death is just a death. An insult is just sound waves. It's the judgment layered on top. This is terrible. This is unbearable. This means something about my worth that produces the suffering. Now stay with me, because this principle applies to desire just as much as it applies to grief or anger. We tend to think desire works like this. Person, attraction, wanting. As if the person themselves contains some fixed quantity of wantable, and your job is just to perceive it accurately, like reading a thermometer. The Stoics would say that's backwards. Desire isn't a direct readout of the object. It's a readout of your judgment about the object. Specifically, your judgment about what that object will get you. Pleasure, validation, escape, power, safety, novelty, proof that you're still desirable yourself. The body responds not to the partner as a neutral fact, but to the meaning your mind has assigned to the partner. This is why the same person can feel electric to you in a hotel room on vacation and completely flat in your own bedroom on a Tuesday. The person hasn't changed chemically. Your judgment about the situation, what it means, what's at stake, what story you're inside has changed completely. This single idea, properly understood, explains almost the entire phenomenon people call bedroom dead. Part 3. Why the tank empties. The real mechanism. So if desire isn't a finite resource being drained, what's actually happening when a couple goes years without touching each other? 3 things according to the Stoic framework, and they stack on top of each other. First, certainty kills judgment-based wanting. The Stoics distinguished between things that are up to us and things that are not up to us. Early in a relationship, the other person is radically not up to you. You don't know if they'll text back. You don't know if they feel what you feel. Every interaction carries genuine uncertainty, and uncertainty forces the mind to keep generating judgments. Is this real? Do they want me? What does this mean? That constant judgment generation is what you experience as longing. Once a relationship is fully secured, married, cohabiting, financially intertwined, kids in the picture, the uncertainty collapses to nearly zero. The mind, no longer required to generate judgments about whether you'll get this person, simply stops. Not because the person became less attractive, because the question closed. And desire in the Stoic model lives in open questions. This is genuinely useful to know, because it means the standard advice, just be more attractive, lose weight, buy lingerie, change the routine, is treating the symptom and missing the mechanism. You can't out-effort a closed question. You have to understand how to reopen it, which we'll get to. Second, chronic comfort-seeking dulls the capacity for desire itself, not just desire for one person. This is where the Stoics get genuinely uncomfortable, because they go after something almost no modern relationship advice touches. The idea that a life optimized entirely for comfort and the avoidance of friction will, as a side effect, flatten your capacity for wanting anything, including sex. Seneca wrote extensively about how a life of constant ease, what he called living softly, doesn't just fail to bring pleasure. It actively destroys the apparatus needed to feel pleasure at all. He observed that people who chase comfort relentlessly become numb to the comforts they obtain. The nervous system, never having to work for anything, never having to tolerate any discomfort, loses its dynamic range. Everything starts to feel beige. Translate that into modern bedroom terms. A person who spends all day in climate-controlled comfort, scrolling a phone that delivers instant dopamine on demand, eating exactly what they want when they want it, never enduring boredom for more than 4 seconds before reaching for a screen. That person's nervous system has been trained, all day, every day, that wanting should be satisfied immediately and without effort. Sex, by contrast, especially long-term partnered sex, requires patience, presence, sustained attention, and tolerance for a slow build. A nervous system trained on instant gratification finds slow build genuinely aversive, not unattractive, aversive. It's not that the partner stopped being desirable. It's that the entire mental machinery for desiring something across time, rather than craving something instantly, has atrophied from disuse. This isn't speculation. It tracks directly with what addiction researchers and sex therapists have separately observed about the relationship between high-frequency, high-novelty digital stimulation and a reduced response to slower, relationship-based intimacy. The Stoics got there first, using nothing but observation of human behavior under conditions of excessive comfort. They just didn't have a word for doom scrolling. Third, we have weaponized desire as a verdict on the relationship, which guarantees its disappearance. Here's the cruelest twist, and it's pure Stoic insight. In the myth of the spark, desire is treated as a referendum, a vote on whether the relationship is good, whether the partner is right, whether love is real. If desire dips, the verdict feels like, this relationship has failed. The Stoics would call this a catastrophic misattribution of what's up to us and what isn't. Desire, like the weather, like other people's opinions, like the outcome of a dice roll, fluctuates for reasons that are mostly not up to us in any given moment. Treating its fluctuation as a verdict on the deeper question, is this a good partnership? Is this a person I respect and choose? Creates enormous anxiety. And anxiety, physiologically, is one of the single most reliable desire killers that exists. The body cannot simultaneously run a threat assessment script, is my relationship dying? And a desire script, I want this person right now. They use overlapping neurological real estate, and threat always wins. So the couple ends up in a vicious loop entirely manufactured by the misjudgment itself. Desire dips for ordinary reasons: certainty, comfort, fatigue. The dip gets interpreted as catastrophic meaning. That interpretation produces anxiety. Anxiety suppresses desire further. The suppression confirms the catastrophic interpretation. By month 3 of this loop, people genuinely believe the bedroom is dead, when what's actually dead is a manufactured story running on a loop, dressed up as biological fact. Part 4. What the Stoics actually say to do about it. This is the part where most content about Stoicism gets lazy and just says, accept what you cannot control, and calls it a day. That's true, but it's incomplete, and frankly it undersells how practical this philosophy gets when applied properly. Reopen the question. Don't manufacture novelty. Manufacture genuine uncertainty. Remember, desire lives in open judgment loops, not closed ones. The instinct is to spice things up with gimmicks. A new position, a costume, a weekend trip. Sometimes that works briefly because it introduces mild novelty, but it usually doesn't last. Because novelty isn't the actual mechanism. Open questions are. What actually reopens a judgment loop is reintroducing real stakes. Real conversations where you don't already know the answer. Real vulnerability where you risk something. Sharing a fear, a desire, an opinion you've been hiding to keep the peace. Real independent pursuits that make you, once again, a person your partner has to wonder about a little, rather than a fully mapped, fully predictable feature of the household. This isn't manipulation through scarcity games. It's the simple fact that a person who has stopped growing, stopped having interior life separate from the relationship, has nothing left to be curious about. And curiosity in the Stoic model is the engine room of desire. Rebuild your dynamic range by deliberately practicing discomfort. If Seneca is right that constant comfort-seeking flattens the nervous system's capacity to feel anything strongly, the fix is what the Stoics literally practiced. Voluntary discomfort. Cold exposure, fasting, physical exertion. Deliberately sitting with boredom instead of reaching for the phone. This isn't a wellness gimmick, and it's nervous system retraining. A person who can tolerate 40 minutes of discomfort without needing instant relief rebuilds the same patience and presence that long, slow-building intimacy requires. You're not fixing your libido directly, you're fixing the underlying machinery that libido depends on. Separate the verdict from the variable. This is the single most important shift, and it's pure Epictetus. Practice explicitly and consciously telling yourself, a dip in desire this week is not a verdict on this relationship. It is weather, not climate. This sounds almost too simple to matter, but the anxiety suppresses desire loop we described earlier is broken at exactly this point. Remove the catastrophizing judgment, and you remove the anxiety it generates, and you remove the primary chemical blocker standing between you and wanting your partner. Again, the Stoics called this the practice of separating impressions from assent, noticing the automatic thought we're broken and consciously declining to agree with it, replacing it with an accurate one. Desire fluctuates, this is normal, this is data, not doom. Remember the body too, because Stoicism never denied it. It's worth saying clearly, the Stoics were not anti-pleasure ascetics who thought desire was beneath them. That's the cartoon version again. They distinguished between desire that's enslaved to you, compulsive, anxious, identity-dependent, and desire that's yours, chosen, enjoyed without panic about losing it. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor with every luxury available to him, didn't write that pleasure was evil. He wrote about not being ruled by the craving for it. There's a real difference between I want this and that's fine, and I need this to prove I'm still loved, still young, still wanted. The second version is the one that turns ordinary fluctuation into a crisis. A relationship's physical chapter going quiet for a season is, on its own, just a fact. What turns that fact into a funeral is the meaning we layer on top of it. And that meaning, the Stoics remind us, is the one thing in this entire situation that actually is up to us. So, is the bedroom actually dead? Almost never. In the way people fear, what's dead more often is a set of conditions. Open uncertainty replaced by total predictability, a nervous system flattened by constant comfort, and a private fear turned into a public verdict neither partner ever agreed to issue. None of those three things are permanent facts about you or your partner. They're patterns built the same way any habit is built, which means they can be rebuilt the same way too. The Stoics never promised that desire would feel the same at year 15 as it did at week 3. They'd say that's not even the right thing to hope for. What they promised is something better suited to an actual human life. That if you stop treating desire as a verdict and start treating it as a variable, one shaped by certainty, by comfort, by the stories you tell yourself about what it means, you get your hands back on the controls. The bedroom isn't a museum exhibit you either still feel moved by or don't. It's a living system, responsive to exactly the inputs we've just walked through. Change the inputs and, more often than the myth wants you to believe, the system responds.